Anselm's Monologium on the Being of God. Chapter 31. This word itself is not the likeness of created beings, but the reality of their being, while created beings are a kind of likeness of reality. What natures are greater and more excellent than others. But here, it seems to me, there arises a question that is not easy to answer, and yet must not be left in any ambiguity. For all words of that sort by which we express any objects in our mind, that is, conceive of them, are likenesses and images of the objects to which they correspond, and every likeness or image is more or less true, according as it more or less closely imitates the object of which it is the likeness. What then is to be our position regarding the word by which all things are expressed, and through which all were created? Will it be, or will it not be, the likeness of the things that have been created through itself? For if it is itself the true likeness of mutable things, it is not consubstantial with supreme immutability, which is false. But if it is not altogether true, and is merely a sort of likeness of mutable things, then the word of supreme truth is not altogether true, which is absurd. But if it has no likeness to mutable things, how were they created after its example? But perhaps nothing of this ambiguity will remain if, as the reality of a man is said to be the living man, but the likeness of image of a man in his picture, so the reality of being is conceived of as in the world whose essence exists so supremely that in a certain sense it alone exists, while in these things which, in comparison with that essence, are in some sort non-existent, and yet were made something true, and according to that word, a kind of imitation of that supreme essence is found. For in this way of word of supreme truth, which is also itself supreme truth, which will experience neither gain nor loss according as it is more or less like its creators, but the necessary inference will rather be that every created being exists in so much the greater degree, or is so much the more excellent, the more like it is to what exists supremely, and is supremely great. For on this account, perhaps, nay, not perhaps, but certainly, does every mind judge matters in any way alive to excel those that are not alive, the sentient to excel the non-sentient, the rational the irrational. For, since the supreme nature, after a certain unique manner of its own, not only exists but lives, and is sentient and rational, it is clear that of all existing beings, that which is in some way alive is more like this supreme nature than that which is not alive at all, and what in any way, even by a corporeal sense, cognises anything, is more like the nature than what is not sentient at all, and what is rational more than what is incapable of reasoning. But it is clear, for a like reason, that certain natures exist in a greater or less degree than others. For, just as that is more excellent by nature which, through its natural essence, is nearer to the most excellent being, so certainly that nature exists in a greater degree whose essence is more like the supreme essence. And I think that this can easily be ascertained as follow: if we should conceive any substance that is alive and sentient and rational to be the proof of its reason, then of its sentience, then of its life, and finally of the bare existence that remains, who would fail to understand that the substance that is thus destroyed little by little is gradually brought to smaller and smaller degrees of existence, and at last to non-existence, but the attribute which, taken each by itself, reduce an essence to less and less degrees of existence, if assumed in order, lead it to greater and greater degrees. It is evident, then, that a living substance exists in a greater degree than one that is not living, a sentient than a not sentient, and a rational than a non-rational. So, there is no doubt that every substance exists in a greater degree and is more excellent, according as it is more like the substance which exists supremely and is supremely excellent. It is sufficient clear, then, that in the Word, through which all things were created, is not their likeness, but their true and simple essence, while, in the things created, there is not a simple and absolute essence, but an imperfect imitation of that true essence. Hence, it necessarily follows that this Word is not more nor less true, according to its likeness to the thing created, but if we created nature has a higher essence and dignity, the more it is seen to approach that word.